Welcome to the Whiskey Congress. Honest, open talk dedicated to speaking the truth to those who are open to hearing it. Black, white, right, left. Most importantly, honest, bold, and fueled by good whiskey. In Whiskey Veritas, we are Whiskey Congress. Join the evolution.
Welcome once again to Whiskey Congress, together in the Cleveland studio with a whiskey to review. We have Knob Creek Rye, 100 proof Knob Creek Rye. If you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, you'll see the bottle.
Our on-demand section.
Our on-demand section, right? Because we're kind of a big deal. So Knob Creek Rye. I scored it.
I scored it.
All right. You want me to go first, or?
Yep, go ahead.
I give it an 86.
Okay.
What'd you give it?
I gave it an 88.
Okay. Wow.
It doesn't taste good.
Okay. It doesn't have any nothing about it made me say, what? You know what it tastes to me? It tastes really old-timey. It tastes to me like a whiskey you would have in a saloon in 1882 after winning a gunfight, which then it would probably taste great. Because you just want a gunfight.
That's a great call. That's a great call. But I mean, and rye is supposed to, by design, not be as flamboyant in terms of flavor. And so it is a little drier. It's, I guess, stiff on the palate, and it just doesn't really jump out. I think, you could use this to make an old fashioned, and that's where you could dress it up a little bit. But I've had some ryes that actually have decent flavor. This one just did, Knob Creek didn't really come through with this.
Again, it's okay. I'm drinking it. I don't hate it.
Right. Again, like I wouldn't just sip on this.
I bought this when a couple weeks ago I went on a whiskey buying spree, and I never
binge,
which is not something I feel bad about. I like Knob Creek's bourbon. Mm-hmm. Frankly, the only time I remember drinking a rye on a regular basis wasn't even truly a rye. It was a Manhattan, an infused Manhattan made with a rye whiskey at one of my favorite joints in Laguna Beach, and just like you said, it's probably great for a Manhattan because it's got that bold whiskey flavor, but it doesn't have any real notes. It doesn't have any, and it does it for 100 proof whiskey. It doesn't burn that much, so I'm guessing that's why it probably got a few more points out of you than me.
Yeah, most likely. That's true. Although I did say before we started I was going to knock it down because the wax from the cap just broke all over the place and ended up in
your glass. That's kind of user error, though. That's
fuck you.
All right, get mad. All right. So anyway, 86, 88. We'll call it an 87 if we average the two. Knob Creek Rye 100 proof. How was your week?
Busy.
Mine too.
Busy but productive.
Back and forth to North Carolina for me again, which I'm actually starting to like that town a little bit.
Okay.
No, I've found a few local places. I don't know. I don't
local places to do what? What's
like
there?
A Chinese restaurant that's actually pretty good. A bar with a trivia.
Don't believe.
A bar with a trivia contest that I do with my coworkers, and we took second this week. Woohoo!
You are a trivia rock star.
I am a trivia rock. No, I haven't won there yet, and I'm pissed. Can't beat those hayseeds. Are you fucking kidding me? We lost to a team called the Pleasant Pheasant Pluckers the other day, and you know how well I just let losing roll off my back without throwing things and getting angry. But anyway, the town has grown on me a little bit. I no longer dread getting there.
Good.
And I work with some really nice people. All right. So anyway, interesting week. Ton of Trump news, but North Korea and South Korea are going to work together and try to come to some kind of peace accord, apparently, which is really a big fucking deal.
It's a huge deal. There's a summit this weekend. Kim Jong-un is actually on South Korean land right now as we speak. I think he arrived yesterday. And so it'll be interesting. I mean, these two countries have basically been at war, more or less, or on the verge of war for 60 years.
I mean, yeah, the Korean War ended in the early or mid 50s.
Right.
So yeah,
and the question is, can they find peace? Can they, kind of pull the militaries back. So, you have that right
demi-
on the
the
border,
demilitarized zone, right?
The DMZ, where, you have North Korean guns and tanks and South Korea guns and tanks and soldiers and, defectors constantly from North Korea, run across. I mean, you see it probably, a couple times a year, someone from North Korea defects and runs across the DMZ and they get shot at and they get shot and they're always, emaciated and starving and haven't eaten and they've got worms and everything else because the conditions are so bad. So it'll be interesting to see, all right, what does this do for the humanitarian effort in North Korea? Because from all accounts, from what we've heard from people who've defected, things are very bad in North Korea. People are starving. Like the only people who are eating are the people in the military, and even that is.
And Kim Jong Un is living like the ultimate rock star, while people.
And Kim Jong Un because we get distracted by that, but there is the issue of whatever happens to him, fine. But we really need to take care of the people that are there in North Korea to help, to help them, and that's where this is important. And my concern is, are things so bad now? Is that a big reason why Kim Jong-un is now talking about peace? Because he realizes he's going to have...
It's untenable.
Right. He's going to have no country, or the people are going to revolt. And then what happens? And that just makes me wonder. Obviously, you have to talk about the Trump impact here.
Yeah.
And, what does that mean? I mean, is it because of Trump? Is it because of Trump's rhetoric? Did they just need someone who was willing to say, you want to play crazy, we can play crazy? And, is that what kind of got us here? I don't know. And maybe it is. And if it is, you have to give Trump credit for it. Maybe he was crazy like a fox in this whole thing. And you definitely have to, if this works out and they're able to come to a peace agreement, they're able to get rid of the nukes in North Korea, they're no longer a threat, then that's a big win for Trump and this administration.
Completely agree. And regardless of the mechanism that got there, this has been something that probably should have happened literally 50 years ago. And there has been nonstop hostility, nonstop tension. The population of North Korea has been under the boot of some kind of a military dictator for that long. And I do think the Trump factor, whether it was Trump says, I'm going to meet with this guy, and South Korea was like, okay, we can't have Trump coming in here and doing this for us. This really impacts us more than it impacts the U.S. Let's, hey, Kim Jong-un, now you have a reason to say, let's do this dialogue and keep us out of the tabloids or whatever you want to call it. Whatever caused it, give Trump credit, give the Trump administration and Trump in person credit for getting this issue, getting the ball rolling. And I mean, my brother is Korean. He was adopted. So I've always I thought about Korea a lot as a younger kid with, having a brother who was born there. And I've had a kind of a sympathetic passion for the North Korean people. Not saying I've marched and done crazy shit like that. Not that that would do any good, but I do consider that to be one of the biggest humanitarian crises in the world. And if it comes to an end, great.
Absolutely. So, you hope it works out. Now, I guess the other fear is that somehow Kim Jong-un completely pulls a 180 and then uses, whatever leverage or whatever ground he gains by having these meetings with South Korea and Trump to then flip around and say, oh, you disrespected me in my honor, and here is a nuke. I don't know. I mean, the guy, he hasn't proven to be too stable to this point.
That's a fair statement.
And so, I don't think you can really take anything off the table. And even Trump in his tweets, right? Like I have to reference the president's tweets. But even Trump in his tweets, stated, I think like last week, like, I don't know where this is going to go. We'll, kind of slow play it. And, hopefully it works out. But if not, then we'll be ready. And I think that's the right attitude to take. And, hopefully.
It probably gives South Korea a huge leverage point, right? Like, hey, let's just get this done. You don't want that crazy guy coming in. I mean, whether by design or coincidence, it gives them that
it absolutely does. So it's something that we keep watching. We listen to what comes out of it. I have to believe that at this point, it's going in a direction that everybody wants it to go. We'll have to stay. Everyone from the military and the people watching will have to keep a close eye on what North Korea does. What are their actions going forward? They're saying the right things. What are they actually going to do, especially when it comes to their nuclear arsenal or what they have or may not have? And then let's go from there. And I also wonder, did something go really, really wrong with their nuclear program to the point where they're just like, all right, we're fucked. We can't, I'm just wondering what the impetus was for this, like what it truly was, if it was Trump, or did he look at his people and say, all right, well, I'm losing, or, because there was something happened, there was an explosion or a collapse of one of the mountains or something like that. And I just wonder, did something go so bad they're just like, all right, we really need help?
Maybe. Shit. I hope they didn't have like a nuclear, like a Chernobyl type thing, but we wouldn't know about it because
and that's what.
And we maybe something like that dramatic. Maybe we might know something. We might have satellite satellite intel.
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe not.
I have no idea. So
it is amazing how little we know about what happens in that part of the world. I mean, it's 2018, and that parts of that country probably look no different than they did in 1950, whatever.
Scary.
Yeah. I mean, I've referenced this, I think, on the show before, but certainly I've referenced it in conversations. Looking at a map of the Korean Peninsula at night is just amazing because South Korea is lit up like Manhattan, and you can literally see where the border is because it goes jet black, and then there's Pyongyang.
Yep.
So, it is crazy. But anyway, something to keep an eye on, and I want to give Trump and Trump in particular credit for possibly being the impetus that led to something that could be a great, humanitarian change and be a move towards peace where there has been none for 60 years. Right. So, okay, cool. But all right, so we're nice to Trump.
Okay.
And it was the right thing to do. I think having said that, did you catch him calling Fox and Friends this week? Let's break down what happens here. He's watching Fox and Friends. He's in his morning tweet mode. He calls the fucking show. Now, I don't blame them for taking the call because how do you not?
Right.
But he literally gets on there and starts, Lion Comey is being Lion Comey and he's committed crimes. And if my Justice Department was doing their jobs, they were like, whoa. That's your Justice Department.
Right.
Well, while this witch hunt is going on, they're telling me not to interfere. Forgetting all of that. And just saying, how fucking crazy is it that the president is calling a morning show spontaneously and ranting?
I don't know. I don't understand. And this is one of those things where some people would look at it. If you're a Trump supporter, then you'll look at it and say, why does it matter? It's not really a big deal. He did say something in there that Comey was representing him with the whole thing with Stormy Daniels.
No, Michael Cohen.
Or Cohen. I'm sorry. That Cohen was representing him with the whole thing with Stormy Daniels,
right.
which is interesting because of his claim that he had no idea what Cohen was doing, and he's kind of he hasn't come out and denied having a relationship with Stormy Daniels, or I think her name is Stephanie Clifford, her real name.
Correct.
She did get Penthouse Playmate of the Millennia just recently.
Thank you.
I saw that on social
Is anyone
media.
here from Penthouse Magazine? Then we're not talking. That's a line from Splash. I'm sorry.
Okay. So I think that's where people around Trump are just like, you have to get yourself under control.
Yeah.
Right. You may have just thrown someone a bone that we didn't want to throw them because you're now acknowledging that Cohen was working for you in some capacity in dealing with Stormy Daniels, where you had previously said he wasn't. You had no knowledge of what he was doing. So, and that's big. But in terms of just some people look at it and say it's bad form, and it shows that that's what he listens to Fox and Friends, and that just confirms it. So what? I mean, that's the. if that's what he likes to watch, if that's who, okay, fine. I mean, I get it, but the bigger thing for him is, when he go, and this is my criticism of Trump, when he says things that are not true or not accurate or
self-implicating,
or right, then that's where you criticize him and say that's why you probably shouldn't be talking so damn much. Right?
You're a lawyer, and as a lawyer, if he was your client and you were dealing with him in a number, in a number of sensitive matters, wouldn't you be losing your fucking mind? I mean, every lawyer I talk to about anything will say the first thing they want their clients to do is shut the fuck up. Now, that ain't gonna happen to this guy, but
I mean, with a guy like Trump, you recognize that you're only going to have so much control. He is just, the spotlight, the limelight, the attention. It's a magnet for him,
right?
And you can tell him all you want, shut your mouth, don't talk. And so, as an attorney, you have to make a decision if you want him as a client, right? He's going to come to you, and you have to make the decision.
I'm not claiming they're victims of.
No. But what I'm saying is, and once you make that decision, that all right, I'm going to take your retainer. I'm going to then you know who you're dealing with, and that's when you have to look at every situation, think through implications of everything that he says, and you have to be ready to defend it. Right? You can be as pissed and annoyed about it as you want, but you have to recognize that he is saying things that may have a actual impact on a legal proceeding at some point in time, and you can't miss it, right? You can't miss it, and that's the thing. It is a 24/7 job with him.
Now, because he's not under oath, can any of that be just dismissed?
Well,
as like,
yeah,
okay,
I mean,
he said it on Fox and Friends. It's an entertainment network. Blah blah blah. I'm sorry about the coughing. It's back.
Yeah, back. It seems like it comes back every Saturday.
It doesn't go. You just see me then. It never goes away. I think I have tuberculosis. Sucks to be me, but hey,
tough shit. No, you should probably get that looked at.
No, I don't have tuberculosis. I'm doing a lot better.
I know.
Actually.
I'm just saying.
I did tell someone the other day that I was playing Doc Holliday in Tombstone the musical.
So, in terms of can it be used against them?
Hold on.
Okay, so we had to take a quick break, and we're back. Jim handling work stuff, being all engineering,
all
and techie,
professional and shit,
and whatnot. And we got to do a better job at editing and just edit that stuff out.
Fair, fine. People can deal with. We're entertainers and professionals.
Right. So you were asking me before if Trump's interview can be used against him in court. Absolutely, it can. It can absolutely be used against him. They could say if anything he says, if he's made statements that they've used in court for any number of purposes, and he says something that contradicts it in the open for public consumption, then they can go back and say, here it is. This is what he said. Now, that's when you bring him in under oath, and you say, which is it, A or B?
Okay, which is, so either back this up or, okay.
Right, one or the other. So it could absolutely be used against him. I wouldn't be surprised if something's not already...
I forget, I think it was Alan Cox show I was watching or listening to, and he said basically that, is it Avante? What's Stormy Daniels' lawyer's name? It's like Avante or something.
Avante, yeah.
He was like, I'm sure this guy just has Fox and Friends on his DVR. It just sits there. His exact line was, Alan Cox's exact line was, I don't know if this guy's a good lawyer or just found the right gig or something. Just I don't have to do anything. Just sit back and let this guy bury himself.
Well, that's and that's the trouble with a client like Donald Trump.
And so we should also mention, if you're watching, we did we gave the hook to Knob Creek Rye. We went to the relief pitcher, went to the ace. We brought in the bottle of Blanton's. The further we went along with that stuff, it just wasn't working.
It did not get better and was getting harder to drink.
Yeah.
So I jumped off the beer train, though. I jumped into some sparkling Deer Park water.
I'm drinking homebrew. Yeah, my second homebrew.
Yeah, and I jumped into some Blanton's myself. So
yes.
And
we reviewed Blanton's before. I do have a tea. Yeah,
you got a tea.
Yeah, I do.
if you don't know, Blanton's has on the top of the bottle, there's a racehorse with a jockey on it. Obviously it's bourbon, it's Kentucky Derby, but at the little back right hoof of the horse, there's always a letter, and it spells out Blanton's.
Right. I know people who collect that shit, and like it sells on eBay. Do you do?
Yeah, I have.
Do you need a T?
I don't think I need a T.
Okay.
I might. I don't know. If I do, when we're done, I'll take it.
Oh, you're not going to ask me. You're going to take my...
You just asked me if I need a T.
Didn't say I was going to solve the problem if you did.
Well, now I am just going to take it. And I may not wait till it's finished either. You don't spend enough time here, a-hole.
You have a key to my place, so... Oh, your Blanton's is gone. What must have happened? File a police report, bitch. Is what
Exactly.
All right. So anyway, let's move on.
Yep.
You want to talk about Ben Carson?
Yeah, so this is just, and this hits home for me,
you, yeah,
because it's right in my wheelhouse. Ben Carson, who is the Secretary of HUD, has said he's got a new proposal to raise rents for people in low-income housing, and he would basically triple their rents. Right now, people pay roughly 30% of their income if you live in public housing, or if you live you have a Section 8 housing choice voucher, you pay roughly 30% of your income. And then if you don't have an income, or if your income is too low, then there's just a base level of $50 that you pay for rent. Ben Carson wants to take that $50 and make it $150, and he wants to bump the amount you pay out of your income from 30% to 35%. And the problem is the people that would go from 30 to 35%, it may not hit them quite as hard. Although when you work on the ground like I do, and in the trenches of, the people who live in public housing, whether it's, the projects or some sort of, something that we've built,
right,
or
elderly care, or
whatever it is, these people are on fixed low incomes. And Ben Carson's reasoning for raising the rent, he's saying, well, because the way our system is, people aren't incentivized to work. They don't want to work. And so that's why if we raise the rent, it'll make them work. And, because he wants to put in this, work requirement. And I work with this every day. It's not pie in the sky. I spend a lot of time in, working with tenants, talking to them in their homes, with them, in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a big meeting, or it's just explaining to them what we're doing from a construction standpoint, or getting an idea of how we're going to have to move people around when we're building new apartments or renovating apartments, and then just talking to people in general, just so that I get a sense of what's going on, right? Everywhere, all over Cleveland. I did this in Cleveland. I did this in Baltimore. I've done it in D.C. I've done it in Chicago. I've done it all, enough places where I think I can speak on this.
Yeah, I think you can more than most.
And people who live in these situations, a lot of them, most of them do actually work. And they're not choosing to work, or they're not choosing to take a low-paying job so that their rent doesn't go up. These are very proud people in most instances, who are in tough situations. And while we're saying the economy is getting better, they haven't seen what everyone else has seen. They're not seeing big increases in salaries, and they're not getting $1,000 bonuses because of tax cuts. They're not seeing any of that. Their situations haven't changed. Their situations haven't changed in 15 years. If they're even working, that's for them, that's a win. And they would love to be in a situation where they made more money if they could, and be able to move out of the project. The issue is them being hired, them finding that job that would allow them to move from the situation that they're in into a better one. They're not saying, well, I don't want to lose my cheap housing. I don't want to continue, I'm going to not take a job making more money so that I continue to live here in this public housing. That's not the attitude. That's not the sentiment. A lot of these people, they're in this situation. What we need to fix is access to better opportunities, right? Like, let them keep their housing, let them keep a stable home, and then figure out a way for them to get the jobs that pay $15 an hour, $20 an hour, or whatever, so that they can move out and move on to that next part of their life. And for some people, it is generational. They are stuck because they can't get jobs making more than $10 an hour. Some of these people only make minimum wage and they only work, 30 hours a week, and that's not enough to that's not enough to do anything with. So, I think this is just a proposal from Ben Carson.
Right.
Anything that they do would need to be approved by Congress, and I don't. There's no way anyone in Congress. The Democrats,
really?
the Democrats in Congress wouldn't let this go as is. And at Ben Carson, it's a starting point. So there may be some raise in rents, which is going to be any time you see a raise in the rents in these situations, it's going to cause a problem. It's not something that I'm looking forward to, given my job, if they do go through and raise the rents on people, because people are not going to be able to afford to pay it, and people are going to end up on the street.
So you and I have talked about issues related to this in just, hanging out as friends. And one thing that really struck me once when we were talking, you were on a project, and I don't know enough details, and I wouldn't want to bring up details, but you were basically saying, like, you had to tell these people, we need to move you for a period of time so we can renovate and do things to help you. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of distrust. Yeah. And there's a lot of fear, because paranoia. It's not paranoia, it's fear. It's like, look, I'm trying to live here and I'm scraping by, and now you're coming in there. And I remember you telling me a story where, like, some younger white kid came in and told them, oh, don't worry, everything's fine. And these people thought, you want me to trust you? You're a 26-year-old man bun. I don't know if the kid had a man bun or not. I'm projecting man bun and beard.
Right.
And it's generally fucking with people's lives. And this is an attitude that I think a lot of generally right-leaning people have is, well, some number of people are working the system and we need to stop that. So we're going to fuck the 92% that are not to stop that 8%, or I'm making numbers up, obviously. But that's a fucked up way to try to solve a problem.
It really is. And the reality is that there are a small percentage of people who are gaming the system.
Right.
Absolutely.
Every system gets gamed. Everyone. But to hurt the general populace to stop that is a terrible way to address a problem. Sorry.
So, again, working Cleveland, Baltimore, DC, Chicago, like, you see it. And when you see those people gaming the system, every housing authority, they know about it, they're aware of it, and they take the necessary precautions to try to stop it. But there's a lot on any housing authority in any given city or metropolitan area. It's the classic example of there's a lot of responsibility and not enough resources, right? Whether it's money coming in, and money isn't always the problem. It's actually the people who work in the housing authority, having enough people who are competent enough to be able to handle all the different situations that arise when you are trying to house, thousands and thousands of people, right? I mean, there's just a lot of responsibility that goes with that, and being able to find enough competent people to handle it in an efficient manner is difficult, and that, in part, is the problem that we see in trying to kind of curtail the people who are gaming the system. So again, instead of screwing all these people over who aren't gaming the system, we need to figure out a way how to get housing authorities better help, how to get them, better talent. We need to figure out a way to draw in better talent. And then we also have to look at the other societal issues that are kind of directly related to all this in terms of opportunity, jobs, and the like. And then that's how we can start to solve the problem. Squeezing these people for money that they don't have and then kicking them out on the street because they can't afford to pay their rent. Well, that hasn't resolved. That won't resolve anything. That'll make a bad situation worse.
It'll hurt people.
And who this hurts, there's a high percentage of single mothers that live in public housing, right?
Okay.
I mean, it's just
true. Okay.
And this hurts them. You have a single mother, 1, 2, 3 kids, however many kids she has. Yes, birth control, fine, whatever.
Okay.
But this isn't the time for that conversation.
All right.
But that's who this hurts, because you have one person, making, X amount of dollars, and then you're saying, all right, well, yeah, you got to feed your kids, and yeah, you're probably only working part-time, in retail or at a fast food place or whatever, or you're, some temp agency or something along those lines. But now we're going to take more of the money that you're making, either 5% more of the money that you're making, or we're going to triple your rent. Right? We're going to say instead of 50, it's going to be 150, or instead of 75, you have to pay 150. And she's not going to be able to afford it. She's going to fall behind. And then where's she going to go?
And the money that she's making is going directly towards taking care of her kids, putting food on the table, whatever.
Right. I mean, and she's
it's not like she's lavishly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, she's shuffling money around, paying rent, and then paying, not paying this bill, and then paying that bill, and then paying late fees on bill,
right,
other
right,
bills.
Sure.
And are there people who are living beyond their means? And yes, absolutely, you find that, but you find that everywhere, right? And we shouldn't flip the system upside down because you have those bad actors. You just have to figure out how to make the system better for the people who are doing it right.
The big picture to me is if you flip the system to knock out the whatever percentage of people who are gaming the system and hurt a whole bunch of other people for the purpose of stopping that, that's the wrong way to go about it. The people who, like you said, are taking advantage. People who do things on the ground level know that, and they need to be the ones who'd say, "Okay, look, you can't do this." To change the fundamental rules to hurt other people, so those people get squeezed out. Fundamentally flawed logic, terrible decision, and it is the right wing pick you up by your bootstraps. If you didn't have all these kids out of wedlock, you wouldn't have this. Well, fine. But these kids don't deserve to get screwed over because of that.
Are here, right?
They're here,
the kids
and treat
here.
them right. If you're going to call yourself a Christian, I know I hate to throw that out there, but all these folks will talk about the Christian values thing, which I admire. However, look yourself in the mirror and say these things out loud. And if you can still call yourself a Christian, try again.
Instead of looking in the mirror, I want you to be there when you have to tell that mother and her kids that they have to leave and they don't have a place to go. Because once you leave public housing, there's nowhere else. Where are you going to go? Right? So you want to triple the rent, then I want you to be the one to have to sit there and hand out the eviction notices to these mothers, to these families, to these senior citizens who are, barely scraping by, and now you're tripling the amount of money that they're going to pay for rent. All right, okay. If you want to do that, then fine. But then you need to be a part of the process.
Well, when when Ben Carson got put in place, you and I both said, "What the fuck does Ben Carson know about public housing? He's a neurosurgeon. Good for him."
No, I didn't say what does he know. I said he knows nothing about it. And this is a terrible idea.
Okay. Sorry for projecting. But why do you think he was put in that position?
Well, we said it then. I mean, it was to really basically destroy the agency from the inside out and give it and
have a black guy be the face of it, so that you can say, well, he's not Trump the
he's
awful,
one of you.
He's right. He's not Trump the awful whatever. He's Dr. Ben Carson who picked himself up by his bootstraps, and he should be your hero. And by the way, yeah, he's one of you. So
I mean, it just it's frustrating, but fortunately there are stops in place to prevent something ridiculous like this from going forward. And he'll have to take it to Congress, and there's enough people in Congress who will beat the hell out of this to the point where
I hope so.
There are.
I hope so. I mean, there will be enough.
I mean, Elizabeth Warren. I mean, I can already see. I mean, I'm sure she.
Who you're not a huge fan of.
I'm not a huge fan of, and she did that to herself. That whole thing with her, Native American and all that nonsense, and she her and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, just go.
What did you put about Chuck Schumer on Twitter the other day? If I'm leading us on the wrong path, I'll just stop. I remember something about Chuck Schumer pissed you off. I'm totally going off script.
Oh, well, he introduced the the weed legislation on 420, which I thought was complete bullshit. Right, now is the time to do it. Oh my God, is it really 420? Is that really a weed holiday? It was totally staged, and I just think that this is something that should have been and what it does, essentially it decriminalizes marijuana at the federal level,
right,
and allows states to deal with marijuana as they choose.
Which I've been calling for a long time, right? I've been saying,
congratulations. So,
right, thank you.
What that does, though,
it
allows the states to control on their own how they view marijuana, and opens it up if you want to use it recreationally or medicinally. And there's a number of
get the federal ban out.
Right. I mean, you're removing it from a Schedule 3 drug, which means
Schedule 3, I think it's like 2 or 1.
Schedule 2. Sorry. But you're removing it. You're removing it from that status, which means it's no longer a controlled substance, and that's what everyone in the world of marijuana, and even a lot of people in medicine and research, and even in the sports leagues, are looking for, right? And so, and I was just annoyed that
sorry to derail this.
No, it's fine. But I was just annoyed he did it on 420. I think it's something that should have been, as soon as it was ready, it should have been put out there. And you know for a fact that he delayed it until 420 by design. And I just thought that was a dick move.
Okay, I think you're being a hater right there. I think you hate Chuck Schumer.
Can't stand him.
I know that. I've got mixed feelings about him. He kind of annoys me.
I mean, you know what? Most of the Democratic leadership in Congress and the Senate, I can't stand.
I know.
Maxine Waters to me is an embarrassment. Nancy Pelosi also just does. I won't say what I want. Well, I will. No. I think that some of these people, their intentions are 100% self-serving. There's not a single ounce of public servant left in these people, and everything they're doing is for their own self-interest.
Cling to that position, because being a congressman or a senator is a really lucrative life. I mean, you live high on the hog. You forget the salary. The salaries are good, but not amazing. But what you get beside that in terms of perks and prestige and life. I mean, if you're a senator or congressperson, I want to say just for one term, you are guaranteed that salary for the rest of your life. So you get paid whatever, 120, whatever a congressman makes a year for the rest of your life. And you get other perks on top of that, like, positions for staffers and things for the rest of your life. And that's kind of an underreported, under-talked about thing. But
I need to run for Congress.
No shit. I tried to. Well, not tried. Casually
tried
to.
It.
I thought about it. I knocked on some doors and talked to some folks and realized they wanted me to stuff flyers underneath windshield wipers. And I'm like, I want to run in a very blue district as an unwinnable candidate, which, by the way, has become in vogue now. Now it's actually working for people. So whatever. But yeah, I know you can't stand Chuck Schumer. Now, I don't. You and I think, traded a bunch of text messages about this because I said, I don't know that Chuck Schumer is that aware. You disagree with me?
I fully disagree with you.
I know you do.
You know damn well. That dude is way too political savvy. There's no way he and his staff did not know that. Come on, Jim. Let's not.
Here's where we disagree. You think, I believe it came out on 420 for a reason. I think it's just as likely that some 22-year-old staffer said, Mr. Schumer, we should do this today. I don't know why they have a Bill Clinton voice, but I think that some kid knew that, thought it was funny, and Chuck Schumer was a completely oblivious idiot.
No.
And here's why I think that. So many of these folks are so out of touch with the real world. I'll never forget. I loved John Kerry as a candidate. I like John Kerry for a lot of reasons. John Kerry went to Green Bay, Wisconsin when he was running for president in Lambeau Field and said, "It's great to be here at Lambert Stadium." And I'm like, holy fuck. You are so...
I'll one up you. Joe Biden went to Youngstown, where I'm from.
I love Joe Biden.
And
I'm afraid where this is going to go.
He goes into the Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn is unfortunately now closed, but it was a little restaurant bar right by my high school. And we would go there, Friday nights after games, and they would, we would eat, pizza, and the adults would, have a couple beers or whatever. As we got older, it went from pizza to beer and everything else. But I mean, it's an iconic place in Youngstown. It had been there for like 70 years.
All right.
And so Joe Biden goes there when they were campaigning. And it's a small place. It may be whole. I think the capacity is like 60 people, right?
All right.
But it's jammed in with all his staff, and then a bunch of people, and Tony Cafaro is there because Tony Cafaro hangs out at the Golden Dawn.
Who's Tony Cafaro?
Tony Cafaro is one of the richest men in the Midwest.
Okay.
He owns a real estate company. They do malls.
Okay.
They build like strip malls, and now they build like kind of like the outdoor mall sort of things like out at Crocker and things like that.
So yeah, the shopping center or
right,
whatever.
They switched from malls to that sort of style, but they do that in leasing and everything else. Massively wealthy man. But you wouldn't like he literally hangs out at one of the cheapest places to eat in the city of Youngstown, which is not that expensive to begin with.
Right.
But
which I respect, by the way.
Right. Like he looks like never mind. He's there, and all these people are there. Joe Biden is there, and he's like, "All right, everybody's drinks and food. It's all on me." And he whips out a credit card. Golden Dawn only takes cash. So then he had to like ask around.
No,
he had to ask around.
No. Oh my
because he didn't have any cash on him. He had to ask his staff, and I think Tony Cafaro had to like pitch in, and then it ends up being this whole clusterfuck.
I forgot my wallet in Delaware. Oh motherfucker!
Yeah,
all right.
So that's your boy. But anyway, but to your point, yes,
shit.
these guys are out of
so
touch.
that's why I'm not putting that on Chuck Schumer.
I disagree.
We can agree to disagree there. That's cool.
I completely disagree.
And I'm ready to move on from Dr. Carson because we got Dr.
Ronny Jackson. Wow, this guy. I want to spend a little time.
I want to go to
Jackson.
med school now.
Jeez, Dr. Jackson. So Dr. Jackson is the White House doctor who has been who was Trump's nominee for the head of the VA.
Right.
And because Trump fired the other head of the VA,
right.
So he needed to replace him. So he wants to replace him with his doctor, Ronny Jackson. Well,
who he likes him.
Right. He
You
likes.
know why he likes him? Because he listed Trump at 229. Yeah. I weigh 220. I'm 5'9". If Trump is 229, alrighty then.
Okay. Right.
I can lose a few pounds. I'll admit that. The camera has displayed that. But come on now.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me. So you have this Ronny Jackson character who, when he's got to get
certified, approved, by the Senate.
Confirmed.
Yeah, confirmed. Thank you.
He's got to get Senate confirmation, and all of a sudden it comes out that these like different allegations against him that are all brutal. Right, that he's created a hostile work environment, sexual harassment, drinking on the job. He was banging on a hotel door of a coworker,
a female
coworker. He was hammered at like 3:00 in the morning.
I gotta go. Is that wrong? I gotta plead innocent here because where I come from. That's a Seinfeld joke. If you don't get it, it's on you.
Is that wrong?
Was that wrong?
Yeah. So
you had sex with a cleaning lady. That's Seinfeld. Sorry.
So his whole situation is very messy. He had to step down. He had to remove himself from consideration for the position of the VA, and now his actual, standing in the military, because he's a military doctor, his standing in the military is in jeopardy. I'm not sure if he'll even be able to keep his job as the White House doctor. I mean, Trump would have to make the decision to fire him. I think
which is probably unlikely, right? He likes this guy, and I think the political.
You wait for it to die down, but I mean, they're going to have to now. But they know about these different allegations, and now that stuff has to be investigated. And if it bears fruit, then yeah, he probably will have to fire him.
He probably should. I'm kind of. Let me say this. I almost feel sorry for this guy. He's obviously a train wreck, and I just
he is.
I kind of feel sorry for him. It's
he created his own problems.
Yeah, definitely. He's sleeping in the bed he made. No doubt. However,
and he had a pretty cushy gig. I mean, you're the White House doctor.
And exactly. And he just,
listen, if chances are I know that I'm an asshole, right? So there's certain things. I disagree. That
you're an occasional asshole, and you're a 10 and an asshole when you are on those occasions, but it's not your default position. You don't know if I just insulted you or complimented you. Oh, you're not, but when you are, oh, you're good.
So the issue, like when you know that you are that big of a prick, right? You know that you were hammered, banging on a coworker's hotel door. You know that you tried to play grab ass in the office. Like, you got to go to the president and say, "Hey, I'm honored, but you know, this is not a good idea. Let's not do this."
You know, I don't think people at that level are cursed with self-awareness.
Well, we know they're not.
Right. So
we know they're not.
The
So
idea
you're
that
right.
someone like that's going to say, "I don't deserve this massive promotion and whatever," is not in the DNA of people like that.
I guess I just don't understand. Like, there are, you know, I mean, I'm not in any sort of limelight at all. And there are things in my past that I'm very aware of, that when certain opportunities are presented to me, I think about it and I say, maybe let me think about that. Right? Like, I process it.
We talked about this a bit earlier in the show. I did look into running for Congress as a Democrat in a blue district, and you said, "I want to run your campaign, but there's things about me that can't go public."
Yep.
And so, yeah, when I talked about it, was I that serious? Not really. I didn't expect it to just like happen. I took the initial steps, whatever. But yeah, you were very much like I'll be
the man behind the curtain.
That's what you always said. You want it because you don't want to have the ghosts of being a ball player and
there's a lot of ghosts. But anyway, so I get, that lack of self-awareness is something that is very devoid in
a lot of those folks, yeah,
and it's
like Biden and like Lambert Field from John Kerry. It's like, okay, Lambert Stadium, fucking
it's Lambeau. So anyway, but yeah, Dr. Ronny Jackson, I don't think we will be hearing much from him other than his testimony in front of a congressional or Senate panel investigating his shenanigans in his office.
Yeah, he might be in trouble, and you're right. He might ultimately step down as a way to avoid further embarrassing himself in his political whatever. But
I still think some of that stuff has to be investigated, though, because some of it is borderline criminal.
Yeah, there's that. Well, if
good luck, Doc.
Yeah. Speaking of borderline, not even borderline anymore. Bill Cosby's been convicted of sexual assault.
Yeah.
All right. So this is going to sound weird. I am really upset about this. I don't think, based on what I know, which is just media fed, it doesn't sound good. It sounds like he did a lot of stuff that is flat out drugging women and having sexual relations with them without their ability to consent. It's horrible. But Bill Cosby is someone that I grew up learning about. I mean, I didn't say learning about. Bill Cosby was an amazing media figure. And the fact that he's been convicted now, he'll appeal, he's 80 years old. His legal team will probably string this out for most of the rest of his life. And I recently watched a Chappelle special on Netflix where he talked about how basically he loved Bill Cosby, and yeah, he may have done this shit, but he still changed my life. And I kind of feel the same way. Bill Cosby changed the way I look at race. There was a Bill Cosby album, a comedy album called Bill Cosby Himself, which I probably watched in the early 80s. I want to say 83, 84, somewhere in there. I shouldn't call it a stand-up because he actually spends the whole time sitting in a chair. Yeah. But
I've seen that. I've seen that.
It's fucking brilliant.
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious. It's poignant. It's funny. It's touching. It's everything from the silly thing with Bill Cosby talking about being in a dentist chair and having a string of saliva that he's trying to shake off, and drugs and married life and whatever. And it was, I want to say, it was the first stand-up comedy show I ever watched. And then he does The Cosby Show, and The Cosby Show was the first show I remember that depicted a black family as successful professionals, being good parents, and having that core. I mean, you had Sanford and Son. They ran a junkyard, and you had the Jeffersons, and
They were struggling.
They were struggling. I mean, the Jeffersons was a spinoff from the Archie Bunker show, which was basically built on racism.
Yes.
It was funny.
Yep.
But it was built on racism, and then you had Cosby, and that was on NBC Thursday night, which when I was a kid was the night to watch television.
Yep.
It was Family Ties, Cosby Show, Cheers, Night Court.
When the Cosby Show changed their theme song, their opening theme entrance, like it was an event, right? Like, I mean, it was a big deal. Like, oh, the Cosby, they're changing the intro to the show. And I mean, it was something that I remember. Like we would sit down, because the one year they had done like a bunch of like tuxedos, and it was like they had top hats and canes. And then one year they went real kind of like cultural, like African culture with it and things like that. And then it was a transcendent show. And I really appreciate Bill Cosby because he was a great comic. He was a very strong civic leader in the black community and in the community and as a whole. And sometimes he was that harsh critic, that voice of reason where, you have some of your black leaders that say, well, whatever we do, it should just be allowed because it just don't, because anything that tells us we can't do something is racist, right? And Bill Cosby would come out and just like, well, you can't act like an idiot. You can't walk around with your pants hanging down. You can't do this and you can't do that.
Right.
Like, you need to respect yourself, and you need to, in order for us to advance as a people, we have to respect ourselves and our culture more, right? And I think, and a lot of people attacked him for it, but it was something that needed to be said. It was important that it was said because it did provide some balance. And there are people in kind of leadership roles or in roles that have voices and platforms that maybe aren't quite as critical, because I mean, I think Cosby was kind of grumpy old man with it a little bit.
Sure.
But there are people who have taken that message and have pushed it forward, and it's because he kind of took a lot of the heat for it, and now people are able to kind of remold that message and say, yeah, there are things we have to fight for, but we need to fight for them the right way. And none of that goes away. Nothing that he did goes away. None of the positive impact that he had on this country, maybe the world, none of that changes. But it seems like he did these things. He's got to be punished for it. I don't know how much time he'll actually spend in jail for it. But it's just, I don't know. It was never acceptable to drug someone and have sex with them when they were unconscious, right? Whether it was
correct
60s, 70s, 80s, it's just not okay.
Here's the thing that comes out to me. Again, I didn't even bring up Fat Albert, which was a transcendent show, and it was Bill Cosby giving a moral lecture at the end of every show, and again, making white suburban kid who had two black kids in his school see things differently, think differently, and learn. Bill Cosby, as an older guy, was past the events that led to his ultimate conviction, and just couldn't stop taking jabs at mostly black comedians, from Eddie Murphy to D.L. Hughley to Cat Williams, and ultimately it was Hannibal Buress. And I love Hannibal Buress. I think Hannibal Buress is a amazing comic.
He's hilarious. Without getting too far off the beaten path, I tripped and fell into Hannibal Buress because he was on this stupid show on Cartoon Network. And if you don't know, like, I'm obsessed with I watch cartoon. Not obsessed with them, but I have to watch cartoons before I go to bed. And like, it's the only way I can sleep. It's weird. It's been that way since I was a kid. And so Hannibal Buress is on the show on the Cartoon Network with Eric Andre, right? And I'm not a big Eric Andre fan. Like, he's a big kind of over the top physical actor or comedian.
Yeah.
And I'm not super into it, and he takes things a little too far. But Hannibal Buress is on the show, and he basically, Hannibal Buress says very little on the show. And I couldn't figure out who he was, right? I'm like, who the hell is this guy? So I looked him up one day, and then I started watching his stand-up, and
fucking great.
He made me laugh like I hadn't laughed in a long time. Just very real world, not really giving a fuck about who he offends, but he doesn't take it over the top.
Right.
He's just like, this is how it is, and if you don't like it, whatever. And that's how this whole thing with Bill Cosby came. Like,
Right.
He basically
Hannibal Buress basically said, Bill Cosby, shut the fuck up. You would deal with your being a rapist.
You've been raping women for however long, and it's just like, wait, whoa,
And
what?
again, I love Bill Cosby. I love Hannibal Buress, and I'm upset that the connection of those two leads to this. And I don't mean to diminish what Bill Cosby did because it was fucking horrific.
Right.
But
And I'll say this, and this is important, and I want to say it, and this is where I wish we had a broader audience base. As men,
yes,
women don't owe us sex under any circumstance, right?
like, absolutely true.
They don't.
That's
owe
been
us,
proven to me many times.
they don't owe us sex in any like for like you take them to dinner, you marry them, you. Well, I'm just saying. Like,
you're right.
You,
it's
like
not.
You buy them
not,
something. You buy them flowers. You hold the door open. You buy them a drink at a bar. None of that then translates to they owe you sex. They owe you a hand job. They owe you a blowjob. They don't. Women don't owe men
gratification.
Dick.
Right. Gratification.
That's kind of weird.
Gratification.
But they don't owe women. Women
yeah.
don't owe men sex. So, men, we as a group species have got to. I mean, because this is where the Me Too movement and the Time's Up in whether it's Bill Cosby or Aziz Ansari,
and now Tom Brokaw has been dragged into it. I guess.
We have to respect the fact that women
boundaries.
we respect the boundaries, but respect the fact that women don't owe us anything. And if you approach a woman and she rejects you, then you take that rejection like a man. And you go home and listen. Left and right hand are undefeated; they never turn you down. Right? I mean, it's just the reality of the situation. Like we have to.
You're not wrong. I wouldn't have said it that way.
Right? I think that
because I got turned down by my right hand once.
Obviously the culture is changing.
Yes.
Right. In terms of, I think some of the misogyny and some of the just kind of
accepted
behavior that's always been accepted is fading away. But I still think that there are some attitudes that men should be able to just get sex when they want it because they've done one or two things nice for a lady, right? It's just like, I mean, and you see it, like you go out to a bar or something like that. If we go, somewhere downtown, some kid will, some 20-year-old kid will buy a girl a drink and, maybe she'll accept it and then she'll talk to him for a little bit. She'll walk away and go dance on somebody else. And that kid will be pissed. Right, because he paid $12 for a drink for her. And how dare she not fully embrace him as the knight in shining armor and go home and fuck him, right? And that sort of attitude is what we have to get rid of. And listen, I'm not a feminist, right? I'm not. Right. But we have to have a level of respect for the women that are in our lives, that are around us every day. If we really want to get rid of some of the stuff where, I mean, I see, because of social media, I'm connected to people and women all over the world. And it rips me up when I see how many have been victims of domestic violence, victims of sexual assault, victims of rape, just like, and that to me is disgusting, right? The fact that they have to deal with this. And one of the things that we can do as men is call each other out and say, listen, don't be a shitbag. And Bill Cosby, you were the ultimate shitbag. And there's a price that you have to pay. Now, the issue is, why is Harvey Weinstein not paying that same price? The shit he did.
He probably will.
The shit that he did, I mean, now, some of it is statute of limitations because of when it happened. But some of that stuff, the statute of limitations hasn't ran. Harvey Weinstein needs to pay a price. Some of these other guys that have been called out, like, they need to pay a price for their just dog shit behavior, right? That's part of the problem. That, okay, we had this Me Too movement and all these guys got fired. Matt Lauer's trying to restart his career.
Right.
One of the guys,
bless you.
Sorry, I sneeze like a woman.
You do kind of.
Sorry. So one of these guys, and I can't remember, maybe it's Matt Lauer or...
No, Matt Lauer is trying to...
Well, he's one of these guys, and I can't remember, but one of the news guys, they're trying to get a Netflix special where they interview other guys who've been impacted by the Me Too movement, where they've lost their job or whatever, and basically trying to capitalize off the fact that you're an asshole, right? Like, I mean, and it's just like, where is the actual punishment for the people, for the men who were like, I'm sorry, Matt Lauer, you're a shitbag, right? You put a lock on your door, you lock women in your office, and then you whip your dick out. Like that, like, what is that? You know, like, listen, I'm as masculine as they come.
Fair.
I mean, I won't deny that. I'm not perfect. Like, I'm sure there's plenty of times where women have interacted with me and just said, well, you're a little, whatever. Okay, I get that. But at the same time,
there's a difference between.
At the same time, at no point in time, whoever decide, well, this is a good time for me to just whip my dick out and see what happens. Right? Like, that's
look, yeah, I mean, I have, right. So I went to college in the early 90s. And I remember once getting shoved into a room with a passed out girl whose skirt literally was up at her waist. And I was just pounding on the door to get the fuck out of there. I'm like, I am not going to touch this girl.
Okay. So you can't go from skirt up around her waist to I was just pounding
on
with
the
a
door.
pause.
Oh, I got shoved into the room. Like, this girl
it.
passed out. I'm like, get me the fuck out of here. I'm not going to, this girl is unconscious. I am not going to do anything because that would be rape.
Yeah.
And Bill Cosby should have known better. But this is the ultimate example to me of, can you separate the art from the artist? Because what Bill Cosby did was really powerful, really world-changing. He did so much good. And in a really cynical, really simplistic attitude, it also says to me, if he could have just shut the fuck up about his criticisms of the Hannibal Buress's.
Don't go there, Jim.
I want to.
Don't.
I want to. You're right. I shouldn't.
Don't.
Because it doesn't make it right.
Doesn't make it right. It's not fair to the victims. It's not right.
You're right. It's not. It is in this particular case. And like Harvey Weinstein's a piece of garbage. We know this. He's produced movies that I love. I mean, almost everything that came out of Miramax, anything Kevin Smith did, and I fucking love Kevin Smith movies, had Harvey Weinstein's stamp on it. And I didn't know this until like a couple months ago. But Harvey Weinstein was a huge influence in Buffalo, where I'm from. There was a production company called Harvey and Corky. He was the Harvey.
Wow.
And that sprung him to where he ended up.
So is he from Buffalo?
No, he's from New York City. I think went to school at the University of Buffalo, and a lot of New York City kids go to school at SUNY Buffalo. And anyway, all right, this went down a weird path. We should also agree that Blanton's is fucking amazing. This is a great bourbon.
100 times better
than what we were drinking before.
Isn't that knob creep nonsense?
Yes. I hate to trash them, but that will become Manhattan's.
Which is fine.
Yeah. And
now, I mean, we still, at some point in time...
I think my 86 is holding up better. I think if you had to rescore, I think we'd both drop it down a point or two.
Yeah, 85. I mean, especially the way it's almost like it got sour.
I agree.
So...
All right.
So we'll be done with Cosby. I don't want to talk about it anymore. It's depressing. I think justice was served. Ideally,
I was shocked. By the way, I was shocked it wasn't another hung jury. I mean, you know that I was a
prosecutors did a better job this time around. I followed it. They did a better job. His defense also took a bad approach. They went the route of let's make the victim the person on trial. They tried to put the victim on trial.
Made her look like an opportunist.
Never goes well. Like, I don't know. Like it. Making
lawyer Steve is about to jump out of his chest.
It doesn't work. Not anymore. It hasn't worked in 20 fucking years. Making the victim out to be the person that you put on trial. It's a diversion tactic. People are too smart. I mean, frankly, if you want to blame or explain it, you have all these lawyer shows, Law and Order, SVU, Criminal Minds, whatever, like all these shows, you can't do that anymore. It's not a tactic. It doesn't work. It never works. And so part of it is on the prosecutors came with a stronger, their tactics were stronger, and the defense attorneys, Cosby, he got a new defense team, which I don't know why. Like, listen, you got out of there with a hung jury last time. You're better off probably sticking with the same crew. But anyway, yeah, I was, following it, I wasn't surprised. It felt like early on this was going to go against him. It did. And I think ultimately it was the right thing.
All right. I mean, I didn't follow it as closely as you did, but
I followed. I thought you were gonna, but whatever.
Was that?
No, I thought you were because I know this was a big thing.
I mean, I followed the CNN reporting, but I didn't look into the details. I didn't dig in. All right. So we've been going for over an hour here.
Okay.
You just survived dealing with me on draft night. It was fun. First of all, we each did our mock drafts. I'll give you credit. You nailed the Browns' first pick. I didn't. Excuse me. I agreed with your logic. I just didn't think it would go that way.
Yep.
You put your name on it. Put your name on it.
Yeah.
Be a man.
And, did. Yeah.
Baker Mayfield #1.
Mayfield going to the Browns for me wasn't a surprise. It felt like they wanted to go with the guy who they thought that they said, all right, can go win games. We're going to teach you a little bit. You're going to sit behind Tyrod Taylor, a guy who doesn't turn the ball over, a guy who is a consummate pro, and he's going to get us to the middle of the road. And then when his time is up, it's going to be your time to step in and take us to the next level. And Baker Mayfield is the type of guy, listen, he had to walk on at 2 different schools, win the job, win the team. He did that, and he has put up solid numbers at Oklahoma in the Big 12.
Solid, geez, he put up huge numbers.
He put up video game ridiculous numbers. He made plays down the field. He made plays in short passes. He's got that sort of, I'm going to scramble and I'm going to do stuff that you shouldn't do, like throwing back across my body, but still get it done. And he can move, he can run. He's not the tallest guy, but he's the type of guy who the Browns feel they could put their franchise on, and he can carry them into the playoffs and maybe into the next level. And if the Browns are willing to say, we're going to commit everything we have to you being successful, we're going to, if Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley are willing to say, we're going to look at what you did good in college, and we're going to take some of that, and we're going to copy it, and we're going to bring it into our system, right? And we're going to do whatever you did well, that's what we're going to do. And then whatever language you speak, that's the language you're going to speak. If they do that, then this kid will be successful, and you'll see the Browns be successful. If they don't, and Hugh Jackson decides that he's going to take his tired ass 1-31 record and shove it down Baker Mayfield's throat, then the kid won't be successful. It'll feel like the wrong pick, but it wasn't going to be the right pick, no matter who they picked, right? Sam Darnold or Josh Allen or whoever the fuck, it didn't matter. If Hugh Jackson has his head so far up his own ass, smelling his own farts and shit, and thinks that he's the greatest thing on earth, listen, you fuckwad, you can't win a goddamn game. So you better change. And
he won a game.
Not last year.
Over 2 seasons.
Now they made the move to bring in Todd Haley. How much room does he give Todd Haley to work? That'll be interesting. Todd Haley is the offensive coordinator coming over from the Steelers. So if those guys work together and they work to make sure that Baker Mayfield has everything he needs, then it will be interesting to see how the kid develops.
So here's one thing I heard about Baker Mayfield that I found really interesting to listen to and enjoyed listening to. One person said he has a terrible attitude, he's egotistical, whatever, and a story came out that he got a call from an agent and hung up on the agent. And my initial thought was, that's dumb. Then I heard the rest of the story. The rest of the story was, this agent called him and said, hey, I should represent you. You're a great prospect. What was it like to get recruited by Bob Stoops? And Baker Mayfield said, I wasn't recruited by Bob Stoops. I walked on, and you didn't spend enough time to learn about me before you made this call. Fuck off. I don't know if he said fuck off. If he didn't, I wish he did.
And then he hung up.
I respect that so much. In my business, as a technical consultant, I get calls all the time where people say, hey, we should recruit you. Or not recruit you, but because I'm not signing $20 million contracts. But they'll say, hey, we got a project for you. I'm like, okay, great, talk to me. And then they'll start asking me questions of basically like, so have you ever tied your own shoes? And I'm not going to bore people with
basic engineering
stuff. It's
like,
wow, you don't know anything. You have my resume in front of you and you've not even looked at it. And I have never been able to say fuck off and hang up, but I respect Baker Mayfield for doing it. I'm jealous of Ari Gold from Entourage just ranting. I'm jealous of Baker Mayfield for having the ability to say fuck off. Other people want to represent me who actually took the time to learn who the fuck I am. All right, I'm done.
So that was really more about you than it was.
Baker Mayfield. How does it become about me? Oh, because I said it. Okay.
My thing with Baker Mayfield is a lot of people don't like his attitude. There's a local sports writer here, Tony Grossi. He works for ESPN 850. He can't stand Baker Mayfield. He doesn't like his attitude. He's this guy. A report came out that there's a camera crew that was following Baker Mayfield along with other people.
Right.
But Baker Mayfield was trying to figure out, all right, am I signing with Nike? Am I signing with Adidas? Am I signing with Under Armour? Who am I going to sign with? Right. Which is, you're going to be a top 10 pick in the draft.
Right.
That it's an income stream.
Sure.
This is a business. And, Tony Grossi is, this kid's more worried about who he's going to sign a shoe deal with than, playing football. Shut up. Stop with that. People are pissed that, earlier in the season, Oklahoma played Kansas, and the guys from Kansas when they did the coin flip, the guys from Kansas, Baker Mayfield stuck his hand out to shake hands like you do when you go out there for the captains. Yep. And the guys from Kansas put their hands behind their back, refused to shake his hand. Baker Mayfield goes out, lights them up for about 50 points by the third quarter, and then looks across the field, tells them to fuck off, and then grabs his dick, gives it a nice tug, and then basically tells him to suck it. Right now, listen, I would have done the same exact thing. In fact, I think I've done something similar.
In the studio,
and I think maybe against Rhode Island back in the day. But I don't have a problem with that. And people, that's not mature. Coaches don't want to see that. No one gives up. That's sports. It's a high, you're playing sports. You're revved up. They were dickbags to begin with. So you want to be a dickbag? Here, I'll show you one. And that's what, and that's what, and people are using that as that's the type of behavior you can't have. And then they go to Johnny Manziel, because Johnny Manziel gave the finger to the Redskins or whatever. And it's just all right, Johnny Manziel is a different creature. This kid,
right?
I don't have a problem with him. I think the kid can be successful if the Browns take the necessary steps to allow him to be successful. So
I agree with you. When we did our mock drafts, I did mine based on what I thought would happen, not necessarily what I would have done if I was in those shoes. I respect you for having the, position to say this kid is a baller. You and I have talked about this while drinking at the bar. You said Baker Mayfield's a baller, and I was like, this fucking kid spiked a flag at Ohio Stadium. You said, you know what? He beat Ohio State. He whooped Ohio State. Right. And I didn't like it. I was in your living room watching that game.
I was as pissed as you that he did. We knew what was coming when he did it. But the reason he was able to do it is because the kid can flat out ball, and so.
But he's only 6'1.5" or 6 foot and a half, Steve. Okay. I'm being a jerk.
And the funny thing
that annoys me that they break it down to that bullshit.
And to a degree, maybe it does matter. But here's the thing: when you give quarterbacks that aren't 6 foot tall a chance, it turns out that they can play football just like everybody else.
As long as we play football in college behind midgets, right?
Right. Doug Flutie did it. Russell Wilson is doing it. Drew Brees is doing it.
Right.
There are traditionally, you want the 6'3", 6'4" guy who's got a rocket arm and everything else. But there's been a lot of those guys who have flamed the fuck out.
A whole lot.
I
listened to an interview with Ryan Leaf the other day on Buffalo Sports Radio.
We didn't even talk about this. I was just about to go to Ryan Leaf.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, Ryan Leaf was the guy who flamed out, and his issue, he had the height, he had the weight. He was
a prototype.
He was a prototype. They coming out of Washington State, and but he didn't have it, and I look at a guy like Baker Mayfield, and mentally he has it. I don't care that he grabs his crotch or whatever. He did have a run-in with the police. That was stupid.
He got drunk as a college student and freaked out. Who gives a shit?
Right. It's just and we live in an era now where, and I guess the criticism would be, you have to be aware. It is 2018. It happened in 2017. And it's hey, I need you to be aware that there's a spotlight on you, but it happened. You moved on. We didn't see a pattern of behavior there. We just saw a guy who got drunk, got stupid, whatever.
In 1993, I was at a college party, and there were athletes from WVU where I went to college. And if you're watching the show, you'll see the shirt. Throwing the Mountaineers thing out there. And let's just say this party got a bit out of hand. And my cousin and I left this party before it got really stupid. But the police showed up. I was gone before it went crazy, but that was just partially by luck. And had I been there and had I been one of those athletes, it could have stained my reputation through no fault of mine. Now, again,
dude, come on.
I know.
The police show up all the time.
Well, this was particularly bad because a Jack Daniels bottle got thrown out of a highly elevated apartment and crashed right in front of a police car, and all of a sudden it was like, and John and I, my cousin John and I, were like just outside. We're like, we should be somewhere else now. We left 10 minutes before shit went wrong. Should we shut the show down on that? Because we've been over an hour 15, and we want to hear tales of Jim at WVU with his cousin John. Jim and John. All right, this is Whiskey Congress. We're at Whiskey Congress on all social media. Dude, I enjoyed talking to you as always. This is a lot of fun. I didn't go on a total Bills draft meltdown.
I'm surprised.
I would have gone there, but anyway. At Whiskey Congress.
At social media.
At social media on all Whiskey Congress. That's what happens when you switch from 100 proof whiskey to an even better one. All right, brother. You ready to roll?
Yes, sir. Good night.